Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda. I have had quite a day of trying to do batch filming. Like everything that could go wrong did go wrong. I look a little bedraggled right now because I'm doing this at the end of the day because it's been a day. But you will be seeing this on Tuesday, which means Tag Tuesday. And there's a tag going around that you probably have seen because everyone's done it. Also, just, the cat might be joining me at some point. I don't know. She's over there glaring at me. This is the A to Z hot or not tag, and it was created by Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads. So this tag was created 2 weeks ago, and I saw Greg do it, and I thought the next week, I'll do this tag. No, and I saw it. I said, okay, well, I'll do this. Just do it. I wasn't specifically tagged because it sounds really fun, but I couldn't do it the following Tuesday because I had something else planned. But that Tuesday, I was tagged by a bunch of people, so now I'm doing it. A bunch of people. I'm not actually sure how many. I tried to keep track, and I can't find my list, but I know that Elizabeth at Bokens and Books and Jim at Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff tagged me, as well as other people. So I'm sorry if I didn't get your name. I'm just disorganized. But so now I am doing this tag. There's 26 items, A to Z, and I say hot or not, and I try not to elaborate so much, but you know that I can't resist. So let's get started. A is for audiobooks, and I'm hot on this. Now, I think the idea behind this is how I personally feel about it, and I listen to audiobooks. It's not my preferred way to read. I'll be honest. I usually have one going and it takes me a while to get through. That's fine. Why I'm so hot on it is because I have seen how well it works for other people. Everyone's minds work differently and different things work for different people. My daughter is a book reader, like with her eyes, but my son, having him sit down and read a book is just not a thing that works. But that kid will listen to an audiobook and he will get every detail. And it's just, that's the way his mind is. And I think this whole, it works for some people and it doesn't work for others, and that's perfectly fine. The other reason why I really like audiobooks is my daughter's 5th grade teacher did something really interesting. And I don't know if a lot of teachers do this. I've only ever seen him do it. What we called English growing up in school is now divided into 2 subjects in the elementary schools, at least in our district. ELD, which is English Language Development, and ELA, which is English Language Arts. ELA is like listening to stories and reading stories and getting the meaning from it, and a lot of that sort of thinking about stories and processing the information and critical thinking. ELD is learning to read and grammar and things like that. Now, my daughter in 5th grade, those are pretty much, she's a very strong reader. So, there wasn't much difference between the two for her. But there were kids in her class that were way behind in reading or maybe just couldn't read due to maybe a learning disability or English wasn't their first language. In our school district, we have a lot of kids for English is not their first language or whatever. But they were still learning how to read in 5th grade. And what this teacher did was for the ELA portion, those students who were still in the process of learning to read, they did audiobooks so that they were not held back by the fact they were still learning to read. They could still get the lessons and develop the skills that their classmates were doing with ELA. And at ELD, they worked on their reading skills. I thought that was just brilliant. So I am a big fan of audiobooks, even though I am not the biggest audiobook user. Okay, B, Bildungsroman, dealing with a person's formative years or spiritual education. Hot? Sure, why not? It's not something I think that much about, but that does sound like a good book. So, yeah. C, children's books. Hot. I love children's books. Middle grade picture books, love them all. My kids I don't no longer read to them because they're teenagers. But I loved reading to them when they were little, and now there's other little kids in our family. I always get them books for gifts, so yeah. D, digital. I'm assuming this means ebooks, and I'm very hot on that. Not necessarily because I want to be, because, okay, now the cat is eating and making noise, sorry. The sensation of holding a book and reading it is probably my favorite way to read, but I have eye issues, and sometimes print is hard for me. And digital is great because I can enlarge the font, I can change the contrast on the page, and I can also even change the font. So it is just a lot easier for me to read on digital. And as time proceeds, I'm going to be doing more and more on my ebooks. Okay, E, experimental. Not. I mean, yes, if someone reads it before me and tells me what it is and what to expect and assures me that there is punctuation. The no punctuation thing, that I have a big problem with that. But yeah, I can't say experimental is hard for me. I can't say I never read it and I never like it, but yeah, it's hard. I'm going to say not. F, fantasy. I'm going to say hot. Although, as I have said before, growing up, I was discouraged from reading anything that wasn't realistic fiction. So I'm still getting into fantasy. High fantasy is still hard for me, but sort of the more cozy fantasy, more realistic fantasy, magical realism, that sort of thing, fairy tales, I'm good with all those. I love those. So I'll say hot. G, graphic novel. Medium hot? I mean, I will read graphic novels, but they're not my preferred way of doing them. But I read, a handful a year. H, horror. Hot. I love horror. I'm a little burnt out on horror at the moment after October because I leaned in hard to horror, but I do enjoy horror. I'm not someone who gets scared usually, unless it's Stephen King, but I do. I like the stories. I like the heart pounding you get from them. I, inspirational. So this one, there's two ways I can look at this word. One is inspirational, just a book you find inspiring. And of course, that's hot. Of course I want books that inspire me. But the other way of looking at it is there is actually a genre called inspirational fiction, which is Christian fiction. There's a handful of presses that's what they publish. I have read some. It comes from a branch of Christianity that I do not belong to and that I have some theological disagreements with. Without fail, the inspirational fiction that I have read, which isn't that much, but enough, has been really badly written. So no, I'm going to say not on that. The other thing I don't like about it is it's always very preachy. And I think you can tell a story that has maybe we're talking about Christianity here, a Christian message, and have it not be preachy. I mean, read Madeleine L'Engle, you can do that without it feeling like a sermon, and I don't know. So not for that. J, journalism. Yes, hot. I have made a decision for various reasons that I no longer watch my news. I only read my news. So I have a lot of respect for journalists. I also like books, nonfiction books that are written by journalists because they do a really good job with their research. And they are able to write in a very clear, concise way, more so frequently than like an academic would. K, kitsch. Has a popular or sentimental appeal. So I'm not really sure how to answer this one because kitsch doesn't really matter to me, but it depends a lot on the writing. If the quality of the writing is good, then kitsch is great. It's very sentimental and in a very positive way. But if you can't back up kitsch with strong writing, it's going to be saccharine and unpleasant. So that one really depends on the writing style behind it. L, library. Hot, 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 hot. I love my library. My favorite job I ever had was when I worked in a library, which I did twice. I worked in college. I worked in a library, in our school library. And then after college, I worked for a while at our public library and I loved it. If I had it to do over, I'd go get my MLS. Loved it. M, mystery. The hottest of hots. Favorite genre. I love mystery novels. Love them. N, nonfiction. Sort of answered this in journalism, but yeah, I love nonfiction. Hot. O, omnibus. Not. I don't like omnibuses, omnibuses, or omnibi or whatever. As a book, they're just hard to read because they're so big. But also on my bookshelf, I would rather have 7 Bronte novels than one big book that says the complete work of the Brontes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather have the individual titles. So no to hot, not for omnibuses, omnibi. Poetry, a qualified hot. I do read poetry. I don't read it very often. It can be hard for me. I frequently have to read it aloud, or what I will do is I'll get the audiobook and then I will read with my eyes while I'm listening to it. That helps a lot. If you ever pick up Amanda Gorman's book, I can't remember the title. It's the one that's blue, the bigger one. I highly recommend doing it that way. Listening to her, because she speaks with a very specific cadence, and that comes through in her poetry. And if you just read it, you won't get it. But then also, just her words on the page for her book is part of the poetry. So if you just listen to it, you won't get that. So I like the dual sensory method for poetry. Q, quests. When the protagonist goes on a quest, physical or spiritual. Yes. I mean, sure, that's a great story. That is a great story. I'm all for it. I'm all for great stories. Okay, QR, romance. Not that I think there's anything wrong with romance, or I think it's lesser than other genres or whatever. It's just that right now it's not a genre that's speaking to me. I've read romance. I've read a lot of romance in the past. In 2017, that was all I read because one of the hallmarks of romance is you're getting a happy ending. And in 2017, I needed to know there was going to be a happy ending. So I read a lot of romance then. It's just not a genre that, right now, it's just not appealing to me. So next year it might be hot, but this year it's not. S, science fiction. So I'm going to say not, although there are exceptions. Like fantasy, I was discouraged from reading it as a child. And also I'm just not a sciencey person. So, generally not, but I'll still read it now and then. T, translation. Hot. I love books in translation. Think how many more authors we have to read if their books are translated. I only read in English. So there are authors, apparently if I want to read Jhumpa Lahiri, I have to read translations because she's no longer writing in English. But yes to translations. Hot. U, Übermensch. The Superman or the extraordinary human. Characters who can do everything. Generally not. I mean, I like a Marvel movie as much as the next person, but a character who does everything's not a very interesting character. And so in a book, I would say not. V, Victorian, literature from 1837 to 1901. Sure, hot. Some of my favorite authors wrote during that period. Yeah. W, Western. I would have said not before, but yeah, I like Westerns. Now, some books that I consider Westerns, others may not. I love a good pioneer story, and to me, that's a Western. But yeah, I did Jude on the Range this year and really enjoyed it. So I'm going to say hot for Western. X-rated. Not. It's not my thing. Mostly because I have actually read one erotica book, and it was an accident. I thought it was a romance novel. This is during 2017, and I realized this is a lot spicier than most romance novels. So based on what I have heard about it, because I can't really talk to the genre, but the aim of that genre is not a plot so much. And I like to have a story. So I'm going to say no. Why? Young adult. So not at this moment. Mostly because my children are teenagers now, and so I have young adults in the house, and when I read, I need an escape. So I have read young adult in the past, and I may read it again in the future, but right now I'm not reading it. And Z, zeitgeist, spirit or mood of the times. Sure. Yes. Hot. I especially like the zeitgeist in a book when you read it at a later time period. So, I recently read Address Unknown, which was written in 1936. And so it had great zeitgeist for 1936, but I can read all the historical fiction books set in 1936 that there is, but I'm not going to really get the real feel unless I read a book that's written in 1936 that really embodies the time. So yeah, I'm here for zeitgeist. So that's A through Z. And thanks to Elizabeth and Jim and whoever else tagged me. I'm only going to tag two people. I'm going to tag Sue Jackson because I always tag Sue Jackson. And I think she's done one of these before, but this is a new one, so she can do it again. And I'm going to tag Nikki the librarian. Nikki, I don't know if you do tags, but you are invited to do this one if you want to. She is a new channel. Please go check her out. She does great book recommendations, but she's new, and so we're getting to know her, and I think this is a great way to get to know someone. So I invite Nikki to do this as well. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this. And like, subscribe. Feel free to join my Discord. Information's down below. That's my little broken record, apparently. Anyway, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.